What's up, everybody? Good morning. My name is Rick Guillaume, and this is our first official episode of Red Zone Dads. With me today, I have my guest of honor. His name is Mike Pimentel. Mike and I, we've been, friends for years, and all we do is text about football, basketball, and other random things in life. Mike, are you there?
I'm here, Rick.
Mike, what's up, my man? How you doing?
What's happening, brother? I'm doing all right. I'm getting over a little bit of a little bit of a cold I've had for a little while. So sorry about my voice, but I'm doing good, man. Hanging in there. How about you?
You're good, man. I'm good, bro. I feel like I haven't spoken to you forever. Same here. I'm getting allergy season is kicking here in New England, and man, it's one of those things you just hate. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I know it. I know it's like the opposite. You'd think that you get sick in the winter and not the spring, and then it's like as soon as the weather gets nice, you can go outside. You start feeling it. It's weird.
Exactly, exactly. Well, listen, man, thank you for joining me on this first official episode. And just for anybody that's listening, this kind of, this idea of having a podcast has been brewing for years, but Mike and I were texting, I don't know, maybe a month ago, and Mike said something along the lines, let me know if you remember, Mike, but you said something along the lines of, I have a lot to say. And we said, let's do this podcast. And I was like, you know what? F it, let's do it. You know?
Yeah, a lot of times I'll be watching TV or listening to the radio, and I'm like, I should say something about this. I have some things to say that I think make a lot of sense, and I never get to say them. So it's nice to have a place to be able to share my opinions.
For sure, for sure. And it's a safe space for everybody. And Mike and I, we always, I got, if my wife was to pull up our text right now, she'd be like, dude, what are you doing? Like, what is going on? Is this what you do with your life? Uh, we just text about football nonstop. We don't necessarily speak on the phone, but that's all good because we have a great texting relationship. So I appreciate that, brother.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, let's get right into it. This is gonna be called Red Zone Dads. I kind of came up with the name based on, football, fantasy football, and kind of like the impact of what football has on America, right? Anytime anybody thinks red zone, their team's in the red zone, they're close to scoring, right? And dads ties into it because we are both fathers. So the my background is that I'm a huge sports fan. Always wanted to be in the NFL or the NBA or the MLB. Um, and I love fantasy football. I love all sports, but specifically fantasy football because it just keeps me entertained on my phone all day long. Kind of takes me away from the everyday lifestyle. I'm a diehard New England Patriots fan, diehard Celtics fan. I love the Red Sox, kinda, I think. Not, yeah. We'll table the Red Sox for another episode. But
Yeah.
as far as my dad credentials go, I have three girls, three amazing girls. They're a handful, you know what I mean? But I love it, and I think parenting is being like a GM, whether it's in football, baseball, basketball. You are the GM of your household and just trying to make it work. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, so same kind of thing, that you started with, right? So, I've been an avid sports fan since I can remember, right? My first love was the Red Sox, actually. Um, Die-hard Red Sox fan, back in the day. And of course, it then evolved to the Celtics and the Patriots. And so, I'm constantly thinking about sports, talking about sports in my head, trying to figure out things, trying to say to myself, what would I do if I was in their situation? So it's something I think about, constantly. As far as my dad credentials, I have three kids also, two girls and a boy. Um, I'm a little bit more advanced in my father career than Rick because my kids are a little bit older, right? So that's different challenges based on the ages, right? You get different challenges when they're little, and then a whole new set of different challenges comes up when they get older. My oldest daughter got her license not that long ago, getting her a car. I remember singing her the ABCs like it was 3 days ago.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's my dad credentials. My youngest is my son. I coach him in a ton of sports, and so I'm into that with him, and I kind of get to share my love of the games with him, and so it's been great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And from what you tell me, the kid's a superstar, right?
He does all right. Yeah, he does all right.
I love it. I love it. Well, the podcast vibe in general for those that are listening, it's just gonna be a mix of fantasy football, sports debates, and dad life chaos. So we're gonna kind of blend all three of those things into one and just make it a fun, interactive show. So with our first official episode, we're hoping that this thing takes off and definitely resonates towards not just the dads in this world, but moms and other folks that don't even have children. But either way. It's all about sports, all about having fun. And today's episode preview and the topics that we're going to cover are the NFL draft hype, the 2025 NFL draft hype, fantasy implications from the NFL draft, and dad struggles versus GM struggles, NFL GM struggles specifically. And today is actually the draft eve, 2025 NFL draft eve. So tomorrow, about what, 36 hours from now, will be they'll be launching the NFL, the big production they call the NFL draft. So
Oh my goodness, it's about time.
it's
I mean,
about time.
this thing should have happened 2 weeks ago. Let's go.
Yeah, man. And it's one of those things when you're texting with your friends, talking with your friends, whether you're at the bar or you're home, whatever. It's always like, if I was the GM, this is what I would do. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Pay me that money. I'll make some decisions. But yeah, let's get right into the first segment. Let's talk about the 2025 NFL Draft early storylines, right? The first being probably the most obvious, as it is every freaking year, right? There's a couple QB prospects, right? The first one being Cam Ward, right? The They're saying he will go number one tomorrow night, right? Cam Ward, quarterback from the University of Miami. Mike, my question to you before I get to the second quarterback is he the next elite QB? What do you think?
No, I don't think so. Um, I think he's the best of a bad situation in
Mhm.
2025. I do think he's the best quarterback in this class, but if he was in last year's class, he'd be fourth or fifth best, highest, at best. So, I don't see that. Stroud 2 years ago and Daniels last year. I mean, they set the bar so high for
Mm.
rookie quarterbacks that I don't think Cam Ward can approach that. So when you ask if he's going to be elite or like the next guy, I don't think so. I think he's going to be good. He's going to be okay to good. You know, the offense that's around him is gonna hurt him a little bit, but I think he's gonna be worth the number one pick. I think in this year's draft, like I think they'll be happy with it overall. But to be elite, I don't think so. I think he'll be okay, is what I think.
Okay. Yeah, and with Cam Ward, I agree with you. I agree with you. I think he'll be okay. I think that, without knowing too much and what's going to happen this year, next year, long term, right? I think he's going to be kind of one of your, I don't know, fringe starter, I guess, without seeing him too much. I just think that I don't know if he's the best quarterback in the draft, in this year's draft, but he seems to be the most appealing and kind of the most I don't, I don't know if taking a risk is the appropriate way to go about this, but if you want something to truly watch on the field, I think you have to go with Cam Ward. As far as him being elite and comparing him to what we've had over the past few years, and you had mentioned a couple guys, I think of guys like Joe Burrow. But then I also think of guys like Trevor Lawrence, right? It's like, all right, is he being set up to succeed? And I don't know with Cam Ward. I don't really know who's on the team besides Calvin Ridley. And Calvin Ridley, I think he's what, 30, maybe 31.
Yeah.
Great player. I just don't see it at least right away.
According to Cam Ward, he's the best wide receiver in the league.
Yeah, maybe on Madden.
Yeah.
Let's jump right into the second quarterback. That this guy seems to be the talk of the town. I mean, we know his father well, right? We watched his father play football. A lot of people wore the number 21 because of Deion Sanders, but his son Shador Sanders, the topic of discussion right now is where is Shador going to go, right? So He is, I guess, in most eyes, the number two ranked quarterback, number two ranked QB prospect to come into the draft this year. Now, Shador Sanders rocked it at the University of Colorado. Where do you, Mike, think he will realistically go versus where do you think he should go?
I mean, I think he's going to go to the Steelers at 21. You know, listen, I don't think that any team that needs a quarterback in this draft is very excited about their prospects here. Even the Titans, you know. I know we already talked about camward, but I even think that the Titans are like, meh, we have the number one pick. Camward's the best of the bunch. We need a quarterback. We'll take him. But as far as Shador goes, um, yeah, I think that's where he'll go. I think he'll go. I think he'll go there to Pittsburgh. You also have to think about the coaches of the teams that are rumored to be interested in Shador, right? You got to think about the Giants, the Saints, and the Steelers, right? And you got to think about, a lot of these guys are trying to save their jobs, not Tomlin though. So if you
Mm,
draft Shador and it doesn't go well, what do you think is going to happen,
right.
right? All of a sudden, it's going to be like, well, is Dion going to be the next coach? Is this guy going to be out? And that can scare a lot of guys off, right? But I don't think it'll scare Tomlin off. So I think that's one of the reasons why I like him there. Um, I just, I've been surprised that the Shador hate that's come out, especially in the last 24 hours. Um, I was also surprised that he didn't get a bigger bump from his pro day.
Yeah.
And I get that there's no defense and it's like perfect conditions and he's throwing to his own guys and all that stuff. But usually, a lot of quarterbacks, like Cam Ward, got a huge bump from his pro day.
Right. Right.
Shador did not. And just recently, now you're on Twitter and you're on all these other sites and you're reading about it, and it's all negative. Whereas guys like Jackson Dart, Jalen Milrow, it's all positive. So I wonder what that's all about.
Yeah.
Is that going to push him? Is that going to push him out of the first round altogether? I don't think so. I think the Steelers are in desperate need for something. So that's where ultimately I think he goes.
Okay. Yeah, I agree, man. It's Shador, and I've watched him at Colorado, especially since Dion has been there, obviously, right? The thing about Shador, I do think he's legit, right? The problem I think that he's facing is that Shador's almost too safe. What I mean by that is he's not. I don't think Shador is necessarily going to win you a game, nor do I think he's going to lose you a game. I think he's going to do just what he's supposed to do, given that he's in the right system, right? A la Brock Purdy, for example, right? They're not you're not I don't think you're necessarily going to the game expecting, wow, this guy's gonna rush for 100 yards like a Lamar Jackson, or he's gonna throw for four TDs like a Joe Burrow. Can it happen? Sure. I just don't think that's who he is. I think he's more of a true leader. He's been around, NFL Hall of Famers his whole life. I think he's coached well. And I think that in order for him to truly work in the NFL, he has to be with the right team. And I think Pittsburgh is the right team, right? Because I think that if he goes to a team that doesn't truly understand who he is as a person, doesn't truly understand his background, who his father is, and how he came up, it's gonna be a struggle, and they're gonna wish that they took somebody else. But a team like the Steelers with Mike Tomlin, I think is a great fit. Even though they're still supposedly, I guess, pursuing Aaron Rodgers, I'm not sure what that's all about. I think Shador would do a great job there. I don't think that the Steelers necessarily would be asking him to win games per se, because I think given the offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh, Arthur Smith, that they like to run the ball a lot, and I think that's exactly what would happen in Pittsburgh. Yes, they got DK Metcalf, and yes, they got what's his name, George Pickens, but those guys aren't like volume guys. Those guys aren't like 10 catch a game guys. Those are big play threats down the field. So I think that they're going to find a way to get another running back in the room to help whoever that quarterback is and just run the hell out of the ball, right? And I think Shador would fit that system. I do think, and this is going to sound crazy, I think he would be a great fit with the Rams, right? Sean McVay, quarterback coach, learned from Matt Stafford, and it seems like those guys over there have a great tendency to bring in great wide receivers. or find great wide receivers in the draft, I think he'd be a great fit and a great study with Matt Stafford.
But I don't see. I agree with you there, but I don't see the Rams using a first round pick on him.
No,
Even
no.
a late first round pick, so they would have to get creative with that. I don't think he'll last to the end of the second round. So they would have to get creative with that, and he's going to have to sit for a little while, behind Stafford, which is probably the best thing for him. I just don't know if him or his dad will like that.
Is that
Um, and then also real quick to go back to what you said, miss me with all that Aaron Rodgers talk, man. That dude
oh
needs to go
man.
away. See you
Yeah,
later. My
he's
goodness.
yeah, I know. Go do drums, whatever you got to do, but get out of here with that, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, and so we got a few other teams, right? The Giants, the Patriots, the Jaguars. These are teams that everybody's watching what they do, right? Kind of like when we watch our kids, we're always watching what they do. What are they gonna do next? What are they gonna pick? What are they gonna pick to eat? We don't really we have an idea, but we don't really know, right? But these are teams that are picking early. Um, pick, one of those teams. I know you're a Patriots fan. But pick one of those teams and tell me who needs to do what and what they should do.
So I think out of those three teams, the Giants is the hardest. That's the hardest one. I mean, the Patriots need offensive line is boring, but that's what they need. The Jaguars need defensive help. They were poor at almost every defensive position last year. Line, pass rush, secondary. I mean, you name it, they were bad. So I'd go defense there. The Giants are tough because I feel like the coaches. I mentioned this earlier, but I feel like the coaches are in save job mode, and the only way you save your job, I feel like, is through a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Um, Abdul Carter isn't saving anybody's job. I hate to say it, he's just not, right? Like how many coaches have got fired from the Browns since Miles Garrett has been there?
True.
You know what I mean? It's a quarterback league, quarterback saving your job, and they've put all their eggs in baskets of Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson. That is a tough hill to climb right there. Now, I don't think they're gonna take Sanders. I think Carter's the pick there. Um, but they really have to be hoping against hope that probably Russell Wilson has a little bit of a resurgence here, because if not, they could be looking at the street next year. But I think that's what happens. I think they go Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter's not going to really win them many games. They're still going to be terrible. Um, but that's the path I think that they go.
Yeah, I think the Giants, it's tough because the Giants already have guys on the defensive line, right? So if Carter falls there, I think you just have to take him just by default. However, if somebody's calling, asking for Abdul Carter, I'm getting out of that right away, right? Because I'm now trying to stack picks, right? And I'm still trying to get my quarterback. So maybe it's trading that pick down, but the problem is, as we've texted about, nobody's trying to trade up, right? Everybody's trying to get out of the 3, 4, 5 pick, but nobody's calling as of yet. But if they have the opportunity to trade down, I would be trading down immediately, right? And selecting, somebody maybe at the 9, 10, and also my quarterback. Maybe I trade back up to get Shador for my long-term solution, right? With the Patriots, I think they're kind of sort of in the same boat. Patriots, the talk of the town right now is they're going to draft Will Campbell, left tackle out of LSU, but they're also saying that this guy, he'll be a great guard in the league. Teams don't draft guards at number 4. So I don't, as a Patriots fan, I'm a little like, I know we need the position, but if Abdul Carter was to fall to us, you gotta take Abdul Carter. You gotta take the best available player. If you can get out of that pick and still take Will Campbell at 8, 9, 10, 11, do that, right? But we need weapons, right? I would love to see Ashton Genty on the Patriots, right? Because it gives me a reason to actually turn on the TV every Sunday and watch instead of watching Stevenson fumble 6 times a year. Not fun. As far as the Jaguars go, same thing, right? They need defense, right? That's a glaring need. Mason Graham's supposed to be the pick at number 5, but guys like Adam Schefter are saying, "Hold on a minute, they might go Genty." I don't know if it's just to throw people off or whatnot, but I think they can get Graham if they trade down. So I think three, four, and five all should try and trade down. It's just a matter of who's going to try to trade up. Now,
Yeah, I think the Giants have the best shot of trading down, right? Like, I don't think anybody's trading up to four. I don't think anybody's trying to trade up to five necessarily. I think the Giants sitting there at three actually have a chance to trade down because, what do they say? There's only two blue chip prospects in this whole draft. Quarterback's going number one, so you got blue chip at two and blue chip at three. So there's a chance that somebody out there really loves Carter and tries to come up for three.
yep,
Um, Patriots are in a tough spot. It's almost like it's like a three-player draft and they're drafting fourth, you know. Um, so I agree with you. I think the best case scenario for the Pats is they trade down to 9, 10, 11 and still get Campbell. I just don't think they're going to find a trade partner there, you
yeah,
know.
yep,
So I think they're going to have to stick and pick and deal with it and just say to themselves, hey, listen, it's a tough draft for tackles. I know we have the fourth pick. In any other draft, this dude would be going 12th, but it just is what it is. And so they're gonna have to do it. And then as far as the Jaguars, yeah, I think it's gonna be Mason Graham or it's gonna be Jalen Walker right there.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And in comparison, I know we're at the halfway point, and we're going to speed up along. But as I had mentioned, parenting is like being a GM, right? No one, no one appreciates whatever decision you're going to make until years later. And I think that's what's going to happen tomorrow night, right? Nobody's really going to truly know until five, 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the road and be like, oh God, he was a great dad. You know what I mean? Based off what he instilled in his children. It's the same thing with these GMs and these players. But in regards to dad life comparison, would you rather rebuild an NFL roster or convince a 5-year-old to eat their vegetables?
So that's a tough one. So like I said, I got three kids. My two daughters eat vegetables, no problem. They have their whole life. My son, on the other hand, I don't think has had a green thing in his life. We go at it all the time about it. So it's not easy, and so for that reason, I would choose to rebuild an NFL roster. Man, I'm telling you, that job isn't hard. Come on, I could do it. Let's go.
Right?
Give me $100 million in cap space, and I'll get you to the playoffs.
Seriously, I've done it in Madden plenty of times, so I can.
Yeah,
Yeah. Whereas, yeah, fighting with the kids to eat those vegetables, oh my God. I have one of my neighbors, and they're like, yeah, he just won't do it, So he's stuck on the nuggets and the mac and cheese and all that crap, and has never had like a real meal in his life, never mind any vegetables. So that's tough.
yeah. We have to sneak protein into Ben's diet as much as possible. Like we give him the protein pasta, and he just started eating steak tips, and so we're really trying to push it. I've even tried like you know vanilla protein shakes mixed with like ice cream and strawberries, and he's just not into it. So we gotta do it without him knowing.
For sure, for sure. No, it makes perfect sense. Yeah, let's dive into to another segment here. Fantasy ready 2025 rookies, right? We'll go a little quicker on these responses, but first up, future fantasy studs, right? There's some running backs here, there's some tight ends here, wide receivers. First one up. Let's talk Ashton Genty for a quick minute. Running back out of Boise State, projected to be the first running back selected tomorrow night. Some people are comparing him to Saquon Barkley or Bijan Robinson. Does he have workhorse potential as a fantasy superstar?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, part of it is because of the position that he plays, but he's obviously a stud, right? I mean, those college numbers don't lie, the tape doesn't lie, the combine doesn't lie. I mean, this dude's going to be a beast, right? um, in real life and in fantasy.
Yeah,
So I think that he's right up there with those guys. Top five pick in fantasy. Ish, and you know, but now here's the caveat: is I think most running backs can do that. You know me and my stance on running
yeah,
backs. I think 2 years ago the position was so devalued, right? And then Saquon came along last year and helped it out for sure. I mean, pushed it back up to where dudes are going to start to get paid a little bit more, and maybe get drafted a little bit higher. But overall, I mean, dude, I'm in the boat where you can find a guy in the third or fourth round to do just as much as you can to find a guy in the first one. All they need is opportunity.
Mm,
You give any professional running back, you know, enough carries, they're going to run for 1,000 yards. I mean, it's almost automatic. So, do I think he'll be better than everybody else? Yes, but I don't think it's going to be by like some giant margin. You know?
yeah, yeah, and I think if you're drafting that high, he better be. He better be a fantasy superstar if you're drafting him at, seven, 6 or 7 to the Raiders or whoever it is, right? What about Ty Warren, tight end? I know the league is thirsty for like the next Gronk or the next, Travis Kelsey. Is he the guy? Is he next up?
No, I don't think so. By all accounts, he's super athletic. He's got the measurables. He's got the height. He's got the speed. All that stuff. Um, I don't think he's going to be the next Gronk because Gronk blocked, right? I think Warren has a little bit of a hard time with that, especially when he's lining up on the line. In like inline blocking, he can get kind of blown up a little bit. Um, Now he is a little bit like Kelsey, I think, in a way where he does do well in zones, right? So if a defense is playing zone, he kind of can sit down, find the soft spots. That's what Kelsey does. That's how he makes his bread and butter. Kelsey will run around, find a soft spot, sit down, turn around, and Mahomes will throw it to him, and there's nobody within 10 yards, and you're like, how the hell did that happen? So I think Warren can do a little bit of that. I think his comp is probably more like Fryermuth. I think that's kind of where he'll end up. Fryermuth is a big guy, super athletic, doesn't block a ton,
Yep.
but can catch balls when they get thrown his way. So I don't think I don't think Warren's gonna be breaking any records, but I think he's definitely gonna be a serviceable tight end and somebody who's in the league for a long time.
Yep. That's dope. That's dope. Yeah, I like Ty. I do. I think he's the next guy. I think he's that good. I think he's a guy that you can kind of move all around the field as they did at Penn State. But again, kind of the same with like a Shador, right? It depends on where he goes, and are they gonna actually use the tight end that way? That's a big part of the fantasy implications there. But last one, very quickly, Ted McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona, big body red zone threat. Is he the next Mike Evans?
No, I mean, you know how I feel about these guys. These are not my type of guys.
Yep.
I don't really like the big, huge contested catch, run down the field type of guys. My particular favorite is the smaller, faster, slot guys that can get separation. Like that's my thing.
Yeah.
So do I think Tet's going to be good? Hell yeah. Do I think he'll be Mike Evans? No, but I think his ceiling is like a Drake London, which hey, that's a great comparison. I think if he can turn out to be Drake London, that he's an alpha number one. So I don't think Tet's breaking any records. I think he doesn't have the vertical speed. If he's gonna face a lot more press coverage in the pros than he did in the NFL, and I don't know if he has the explosiveness to get off that press and get down the field like he did in college. So I go no on Mike Evans, but I think he's going to end up being a legit number one somewhere.
Now, as far as like the team impacts when it comes to fantasy football, what's one team you're watching for fantasy implication purposes?
When it comes to the draft, or when it comes to just in general.
Just in general.
So I'm looking at the Chargers, and I'm looking at a guy like Najee Harris,
Ah,
right? So now accounts are that by all accounts are that they're probably going to add a running back. Makes sense to do that. But going back to my earlier statement, you give a running back that's halfway decent, you give him enough opportunities, and they're going to put points up. So, that's a perfect opportunity for him, a perfect coach in Harbaugh. I mean, this guy is run first. Um, he threw a little bit more than we expected last year, which is also good for fantasy. But I think Najee is in a great spot right now for fantasy football purposes.
and health is on the side for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, in regards to that question, right? My team is the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams, I think he's going to get better because they got a new coach in Ben Johnson. I believe in Ben Johnson's system and what he did in Detroit. What I liked with they in the offseason they picked up a bunch of offensive linemen, right? That's a big piece of it. They already have a tight end that can help block and catch a little bit, but I think they're gonna get another running back to pair with DeAndre Swift, and I think they're gonna ball. I think I'm predicting top five fantasy offense this year for sure.
Wait till they get Genty at 10.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. Genty can be your new Gibbs if you want, Jameer Gibbs.
Well, I don't think that will happen, but that's one of the spots that I have him going.
Right, right. No, I mean
Yeah.
if he gets there, whoo, to the moon.
Yeah.
Quick dad life debate. We'll go real quickly and then we're gonna get into a lightning round. Would you rather trust a rookie running back in fantasy or trust your kid to clean their room without being asked 10 times?
So this goes to what I've been saying earlier. Definitely the rookie running back. I mean, you have special ones here and there, but but for me, and again, this is my personal opinion. There are a dime a dozen. You get one off the street, it's just as good as a guy you pick in the second round. As long as
Yep.
you have the right blocking and the right coaching, you'll be fine. But no, that's something that I definitely struggle with at home is cleaning rooms. We have somebody that comes in every couple of weeks and cleans the house for us. So, we're lucky in that way. I'll knock on wood. But for me, just to get my kids to pick up so that the person can come in and clean their room is not easy.
Right, right.
Every 2 weeks, I'm like, hey, she's coming tomorrow. Can you guys pick up your room? It's like, oh, I get the eye roll and the stomping up the stairs, and
So
that is not easy. So I'll trust a rookie running back all day.
yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Reason being is, if that rookie running back um has, a bad day or whatever it is, guess what? I can sub him out with somebody else. Right? I can't do that with my 5-year-old kid that doesn't want to clean her room.
yeah, yeah,
There's nobody else but me. I gotta enter myself into the game. Whereas with the rookie running backs, I think it's so much easier because as far as trust goes, if they're not producing for me, well, guess what? I'm going to put you onto the waiver wire or trade you away and pick up somebody else. I can't do
yeah,
that with my child, unfortunately. All right,
yeah.
so we got about 5 minutes left. We're gonna do in this last segment, we call it hot takes and dad huddle lightning round. Real fast, right? Bold
Yep.
predictions. First question here. Which 2024 playoff team will tank and pick top five in next year's draft?
That's an aggressive question because in reality, I don't think any of them will be that bad. I mean, if they're picking top five, they have to be worse than a lot of horrible teams,
Right.
right? But if I had to pick one, and now this is right now before the draft, right? So we can only go on what we know. It's got to be the Steelers, and I know that Tomlin has never had a losing record, and he's a great coach and all that stuff, but they don't. They have Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson.
Mm,
You can't do that. Now, will they address that? Yes. But as of right now, I got to pick Pittsburgh. Honorable mention, would probably go to Denver. I don't know. I think Bo Nix played a little bit out of control last year. I don't really think he's that good. They do
yeah.
have good coach. They do have a good coaching staff there. And then Tampa. You got Evans is getting older. Godwin is coming off an injury. So those would be my kind of my picks. But if I had to pick one today, it's gonna be Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick the Packers.
Yeah.
Packers to me, they're interesting, right? They have a quarterback, they have a bunch of random receivers. I just don't believe Josh Jacobs is gonna have a year like he did last year. I think, Father Time is gonna catch up. I don't love those receivers. And I think they're gonna take a step back, given that division because Chicago's gonna come up, because Minnesota's kind of hanging in there, and because Detroit will win that division. So Green Bay is my team to tank. Out of who's this year's out of nowhere fantasy superstar?
So kind of in the same boat as the Chargers. Now they're probably going to address this, but I like Jalen Warren. I keep going back to Pittsburgh. I talk about Pittsburgh a lot for some reason, but
Yep.
Jalen Warren's now going to get that spot, right?
Yep.
And I'm sure they'll get a backup running back, but he's going to get the opportunity, and he's good. So I like him there. And this one isn't really out of nowhere because he was pretty good last year, but worthy for Kansas City. He has a potential to be a top 10 wide receiver. I mean, they still have Rice who's coming off an injury. They have Brown who's coming off an injury. So, he could have a chance at the beginning of the season to really take that alpha spot and run with it. So I like Xavier Worthy at Kansas City.
Yeah, this is gonna sound like a homer pick, but I'm gonna pick Drake May. Drake May, I think, has the potential, regardless of who they pick in the draft, to be a top 10 QB simply because he runs, right? I think he has the ability to get, 5, 6, maybe even 700 yards rushing, throw 25 to 30 touchdowns. Yes, I know they have some offensive line issues, but I do believe in the talent. Last year, as you know, right, I wanted them to get Jaden Daniels, but we have Drake May. He's good enough, and I think he's next up for sure. Um, as far as a dad versus a GM, what's harder, managing an NFL draft board or managing a kid's birthday party meltdown?
That's a good question. I think I'm lucky in a chance that in the way that I don't think I've ever had a birthday party meltdown. One of my kids. Now, I have had meltdowns, believe me. Um, so again, man, I'm gonna go with the draft board.
Yep.
You and I sit back here and we think it's easy, and it might be. It might be as easy as we make it out to be. I'm sure it's a little bit harder than we think it is, but man, drafting is my favorite part of fantasy football. Second
Yeah.
second favorite part is trading, right? So that GM job is like a dream job for me. So I would love to run an NFL draft board and I think I could do it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Because I think when you manage a kid's party and there's some sort of meltdown going on, hopefully, whether it's at your house or at like one of those bouncy house places, there's a backup plan, right? And you kind of in your mind should know, or the people that you're coordinating with should kind of know or have some sort of backup plan. The same goes for the NFL draft, but I think that it's definitely, harder to do an NFL draft board because you truly don't know what the next teams are doing. There's so many other teams involved, right? You truly just don't know. Whereas with the kids' party, you should have some sort of knowledge of what's happening. Um, but yeah, that's my answer to that. But we have about 45 seconds that left. Let's wrap this up. Mike, I just want to thank you for participating in the first ever Red Zone Dads Fantasy Football podcast. We're looking to have way more of these coming up in the future. And I'm in the process of setting up an Instagram handle for this, so you'll be able to follow us at Red Zone Dads on Instagram, as well as on YouTube. And with YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. I have to say it just like everybody else says it. Share the content. We look forward to speaking with not just you, Mike, but other guests as well in the future. And you guys that are listening, let us know who your 2025 draft crushes are. Mike, thanks a lot. We're going to get a new episode up and running soon. I appreciate you, man.
You too, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.